Hey, my fourth grade friends, or anyone who's following along, it is time for, it's now officially summer vacation. So it is time for our next portion of Jed and the Junkyard War. When we last left, Jed had started cooking food, kind of saved himself by cooking for the crew. They didn't throw him overboard, although two of them really want to. One is the guy who thinks he's a half machine, half human. The other is Riggs, the guy who runs the engine, who really, really wants his watch, and thinks that Jed is lying to him when he doesn't know what it does or where he got it or where it came from. So those two were voting to throw him overboard, but it didn't happen. Captain loves his food, so he is safe. Now, as he was cleaning up the kitchen at the end of this first meal, it was late at night, and he heard some noise and remembered Riggs telling him about the stowaway cabin. And he opened it and found a little girl named Shay, who stowed away from the steamboat that he thinks his grandfather was running. Now, she says his grandfather, Butterfly, is a bad guy, that he would kind of beat people and make them do different things. Jed doesn't remember him like that at all. So he's really confused by that. And now Shay is telling him that the wristwatch thing that doesn't apparently work is kind of important. So I'm going to pull it up on the screen. You can read along with me or just kick back and listen. Here we go, chapter 15. We're kind of halfway through now. Before the steamboat, Jed started, I heard the crew mention something about gilded relics. Ooh, Shay said. Yes, the prettiest of all the pretties. Jed touched the watch. Is this one of them? Ha! She giggled uncontrollably for barely a second or two. Silly mouse, of course not. It's so small. How could it be when it's so tiny? No. Then how could it make me king of the junkyard? Learn how to read it. It doesn't work. None of the hands move. Not yet. They move when they're ready. When? Look for yourself. They'll tell you when. Jed stared at the symbols. I can't read them. Then you won't be Mouse King, will you? Can you tell me? She shook her head. Glasses Mouse can. Riggs, how do you know? She held her hands to her eyes as if they were spectacles. Glasses everywhere. Only clever mice wear glasses. He has lots of glasses. He must be extra clever. But if he finds out what it does, he'll take it from you. An ugly mouse will be Mouse King. Ugly mouse? Shay screwed up her face and made scratching motions on her cheeks. Oh, Jed smiled. Captain Bog? She nodded. How do you know he'll take it? Because I know what it does. Then tell me, how does it make someone Mouse King? She scrunched her lips and studied Jed. I don't know what kind of mouse you are. What if you're a bad mouse? If I tell you, you'll be Mouse King. I don't want another bad Mouse King. Another? The Scritchling Mouse King is very bad Mouse King. He makes disobedient mice drink the same oil his engines drink, and then he watches them gurgle their last squeak. Jed cringed. That's horrible. He pictured Shay held prisoner, forced to drink oil. He studied her. How could he convince her to tell him? He'd always been skilled at bartering or convincing people to help him, but he didn't understand this girl. Nothing about her made sense. If he pushed too hard, she wouldn't trust him. You're right, he said. I don't want a bad Mouse King either. You don't have to tell me yet. You can wait to get to know me. Her eyes turned suspicious. Don't try to trick me, little mouse. The quirkiness that had laced her voice was gone. When she said little mouse, she wasn't the odd girl anymore. She was someone in control, threatening even. I wouldn't try to trick you. Because I have relics of my own, she said in the same serious voice. I know when I'm being lied to. Don't lie to me, little mouse. Jed wanted to back into a corner. No, of course not. I won't lie to you. A sneaky grin crept through her cheeks. I like you. Maybe you'd make a good Mouse King. But we'll have to wait and see, won't we? She tapped his nose with her index finger. Okay. Well, I should probably let you get to sleep then. Can I get you anything before I go? Do you have a can slicer? She raised the dented can she'd been trying to open. Fresh out. That's okay. Good night, little mouse. She smiled, then picked up the screwdriver and started tapping the lid of the can. Good night. He looked again at the charcoal art on the wall and thought about lemons. He wondered if this one had anything to do with the lemons in spaghetti. As he returned to the mess, he realized Captain Bog hadn't told him where to sleep. He wandered the decks, searching for a room. There weren't any, so he returned to the mess and lay on the hard floor. The evening wasn't cold, but the room was drafty from the cracks in the trap door. He wrapped his arms around himself and curled into a ball. He was asleep before he had time to shiver. Jed awoke to a rubber sole pressing his cheek into his nose. He pushed Captain Bog's boot away from his face. Stop kicking me, he said, rubbing his eyes. Kicking? Captain Bog drew back his leg and whacked Jed's sternum. Air seized into Jed's chest. What are you doing? He said between strained breaths. Kicking you. Jed coughed and hunched over. Why? So you know what kicking's like. You seem a bit confused about it. The pain trickled away and Jed glared. See, you found a nice place to sit down for the night. Yeah. Twinges of pain nipped at Jed's chest. Thanks for that. Where's breakfast? Captain Bog took his new can slicer from his coat pocket and handed it to Jed. Jed took the can slicer and gathered peaches, blackberries, and sweetened condensed milk. I need another fire, he said. You're going to need one for every meal? Most of the time. Are you hungry or not? The captain tapped his chin. You win. I'll have Riggs scorch up the left arm of that sofa. Jed searched for the plates he'd washed last night, but they were gone. The crew was waiting on the top deck around the charred bathtub. Every man but Kaiser was holding a plate. What are you going to make? Pavel asked, licking his lips. Jed held up the berries and sweetened condensed milk. A little treat. Get the bathtub fired up, Riggs, the captain said. But Riggs was already tossing planks of wood into a pile. Not too hot this time, Jed said. He opened the sweetened condensed milk and emptied it into the pan. Hold this over the heat, he said, handing the pan to Sprocket. Sprocket's arms were stiff and her wide-eyed expression hesitant. Jed rolled his eyes. You'll be fine. She stood as far from the fire as possible while still allowing flames to lick the pan. Jed stirred the liquid with a spoon. He opened the berries and drained their syrup in one bowl and added the fruits to another. Jed! Jed! Sprocket called. Something's happening! Bubbles lifted from the basin of the pan and popped at the surface. I can take over. Sprocket gave him the pan and relaxed as if her whole body had been flexed. Jed jiggled the pan. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Sprocket raised an eyebrow that said, yes, it was. Jed slowly stirred the milky liquid. Nothing's happening, Pavel said. It'll take a while. You might want to come back later. But no one left. Everyone stared at the milk as Jed stirred. Many silent minutes later, the liquid started to brown. Jed lifted the pan and kept stirring. What's going on? Sprocket asked. I'm making caramel. The liquid thickened and a rich amber bled through its center. Pavel sniffed the air above the pan. Jed pulled out the spoon and gooey caramel stretched to its tip. It's done. He scooped the caramel into a bowl and set it next to the fruit. Enjoy. He brushed his hands together. How do we eat it? Sprocket asked. Jed took a blackberry and dipped it into the caramel. He held it for the others to see, then tossed it into his mouth. The crew shuffled forward, snatching berries and dunking them into the creamy pool. Even Captain Bog shuddered his way past Pavel and Riggs to the bowls. Hey, Sprocket shouted, you're taking too much. You've had plenty. No, you've had plenty, Riggs said. Get out of my way. You keep cooking like this and we'll have a mutiny on our hands, Captain Bog said. A whisper sounded in Jed's ear. He jumped at its tickle against his skin. That's exactly what you want, isn't it? Kaiser said. Jed spun around. Would you leave me alone already? You want me to leave you alone? Kaiser peeked over the side of the boat. Then take a dive and I won't say another word. I'll pass. Thought so. Why don't you have some breakfast? Jed smirked. Kaiser turned and stalked off. Sprocket reached for another peach slice, and Captain Boggs smacked her hand to snatch the fruit away. He tossed it into his mouth and licked his fingers. Golden Boy, I am officially promoting you to ship's can masher. Congratulations. As long as I'm not the only one looking for cans every time we land. Don't you mean find? Because I'm pretty sure you looked for cans last time. We need to work on your finding skills. That's why the rest of the crew will look with you from now on. Sound reasonable? Sounds reasonable. Captain Bog gave a small smile and turned back to the bowl of fruit, which was now empty. Hey, Golden Boy, he said, what's for lunch? Lunch? Yes, it's the name of a meal, one that comes before dinner and follows breakfast. That's how it works between the Fringe and the Fog, at least. What about your glitter-tailed Denver? Do folks have lunch there? Thanks for the explanation. I had no idea what lunch was. But now that I've had a vocabulary lesson, I feel so much smarter. You realize that between your definition, lunch comes between breakfast and dinner, yes? Not right after breakfast. Ship's Can Masher probably wasn't the most accurate title. It probably should be Ship's Can Masher who mashes cans slower than a salted slug with a belly rot climbing a frozen wall upside down on its back using only its face. That sounds like one pretty incredible slug, Jed said. I'm not bad-mouthing our little slug's efforts. It's doing a clunk better job than expected. But by the time our slug scrubs the dishes, washes the deck, cleans the fire tub, and mashes more cans, it'll be time to start again for dinner. What do you think? Jed gave the captain a confused look. Wait a second. That slug with belly rot can mash cans? I thought it was just climbing a wall. The captain laughed once, and if it doesn't climb fast enough, it just might fall off. He picked up a deck rag and tossed it to Jed. Best get scrubbing. Chapter 16. So it looks like he's doing really well with his cooking skills. As Jed gathered dishes and returned to the mess, he noticed the red light again, blinking on Spyglass's head. What are you up to? Once again, he dragged the crate to the stack and pressed the button. The light shut off. Nothing else happened. He walked into the mess while the crew scrambled for the last remains of the caramel. He emptied the dishes into a basin and opened the spigot on a water barrel to let them soak. The cabin below was silent. Shay was perfectly quiet. Once the crew had returned to their duties, Jed opened the stowaway panel and climbed inside. Shay was scraping the last of her charcoal nubs into another picture of a lemon. Why the lemons? Jed asked. Lemons are happy, don't you think? She said. They're actually my favorite. She paused and looked excitedly at him. Yes, they should be everyone's favorite. I wish I had one right now. No lemons around here. Jed pulled out the lemon in his pocket. Shay scrambled over and pressed her nose into the rind. So nice. So yellow. Yellow smells the best of all the colors. You've seen one of these before? I thought the junkyard didn't have trees. She giggled. Of course I have, silly. It's a rather big mouse yard, wouldn't you say? I wouldn't know. I haven't been to many places. Oh, well. She leaned close to his ear as if sharing a secret. It's a rather big mouse yard. That must make it hard to find things. What things? I'm the best at finding things. What are you looking for? My grandfather. That's easy. He's on the Red Galleon. It took him. If you looked for the Red Galleon, where would you go? Why would I do that? I don't want to be taken too. That doesn't sound like fun at all. Not at all. Jed rubbed his eyes. I know, but I'm trying to find my grandfather. If he's on the Red Galleon, that's where I need to look. Does he hit you with pipes too? Jed winced. I haven't seen him since I was a baby. Shay tapped her chin. Maybe he doesn't hit baby mice with pipes. I've never seen him do it at least, but you're not a baby anymore, so maybe now he'll hit you with a pipe. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll be nice, but I won't know if I can't find him. So if you could just tell me, yes, Shay said, excitement filling her eyes. If you never find him, you'll never find out. Very well, I agree. Agree with what? That we should never, ever, never look for mean mice that hit not baby mice with pipes. No, that's not what I... Before Jed could finish, footsteps clomped down the steps to the lower decks. I have to go. Someone's coming. Stay quiet. Quiet like a sleepy lemon. Exactly. Jed hurried back to the mess and shut the hatch just as the mess door opened. Captain Bog eyed the still dirty dishes. See, what did I tell you? At the rate you work, you won't have lunch finished until dinner. What do you want? Jed asked. Lunch, but that might not happen for another day or two. Captain, Sprocket shouted. Schooners, one scope and closing. He turned around and walked back to the main deck. Jed followed. White ship sails sliced through a puffy cloud ahead and turned toward them. Riggs, the captain called. Aye, sir. The Tinker's schooner is 5 minutes away. Do you have our inventory log ready? Aye. Riggs removed a leather book from one of his pockets. Here. The captain stuffed the log into his own pocket. Might I remind you? Riggs began. The captain nodded before he could finish. I know. Defluxor core. Death and regret. Pobble gave me the message. Jed gripped the tug's railing and squinted at the ship. What's going on? Kaiser, the captain said, assemble the crew. When we land, scout for cans. Negotiations shouldn't take longer than an hour, but I want everyone back in half that time for loading. Loading what? Jed asked. Where is everyone going? You aren't going anywhere, Captain Bogg said. I want my lunch. Can a salted slug with belly rot make lunch in 5 minutes? If I remember, the slug was climbing up a wall backward using only its face, right? Compared to that, a 5-minute lunch is easy. Get it done. He turned to the rest of the crew. Golden Boy will make the rest of you slugs lunch after we're finished here. Pobble scowled and held his belly in both arms as if it were a weeping baby. Jed tapped him on the shoulder. What's a tinker? He's the tinker, Pobble said. You know, for trading goods. Like a store? Sure, like a store, but with better stuff. Jed hurried to the mess and grabbed ham, hominy, and green chilies. The tub still had coals from the morning, so he heated up the skillet and made a hasty potato-less hash. By the time he finished, the white schooner was almost touching Bessie. The ship had a sleek, expensive look, like the kind of ship the rich hero sails into the sunset at the end of a movie. The triangular sails were clean and bright white. Sunlight glowed against them, giving an angelic touch. You're coming with me, Captain Bogg said. Jed thought of Shay. This would be a perfect time to ask her more questions. Why don't I just get started on dinner for the crew? Ha! You think I'm going to leave a kid alone on my ship? Especially one who needs just such a ship to stroll around looking for his missing grandpop? I don't think so. You think I'd steal the tugboat? I can't even drive a car. What makes you think I can fly a boat using a bicycle handlebar and a wrench? I have no idea what you just said, but it doesn't matter. You're coming with me. End of discussion. And bring my lunch. Jed followed the captain to the edge of the ship where the schooner approached. Captain Bogg tied the boat's railings together. The captain snatched the plate of food and pointed to the schooner. After you. Jed climbed the railing and hopped to the schooner. Planks of clean wood and metal paneled the deck in a tidy design. It was still a hodgepodge of junk, but each strip of material either matched or complemented the others. By the time Jed turned around, the captain had finished his food. He tossed the plate overboard and waved Jed forward. Over here. The schooner's helm was a 4-cushion-wide sofa behind polished metal levers and pedals. The white leather cushions looked pristine and even had a new leather scent. The man, probably the tinker, stood from the couch. Everything about him was somehow disproportioned. Waist too high, belly too round, hands too wide, arms too thin, eyes too beady. Aye, if it ain't the mighty Captain Bogg, the tinker said. The words came out in a jumbled heap. Good to see you, Captain Bogg said. Looks like trade's well. Been doing just fine, thank you. Good to hear. How's the road been long Hathaway? Oh, long the way. How's the road been long the way? Fine, haven't seen trouble since Brilligate. Good, the tinker said. Jed perked up. Something he understood. Got myself plenty of creatures I just know you love. Wonderful. Shall we conduct business then? The tinker nodded and waved them to an open staircase. Good, good. The cargo hold wasn't much different from the junkyard, perhaps more organized. The rows and rows of gears and gadgets made Jed think of the Home Depot. Some looked like they belonged on one of Sprocket's shutter lances. Others looked like engine room parts. There were crates of springs, ball bearings, and sheets of glass. The tinker babbled on, his lips barely moving as he spoke. Captain Bogg nodded and pointed here and there and asked about Riggs' defluxor core. They talked for nearly a half hour. Well, the captain talked, at least. Jed still didn't know what the noises from the tinker were. He picked up a bolt the size of a breadstick. The tinker glanced at him. He was about to look away when he froze, his two big eyebrows scrunched into a bush. Is that what I think it is? He pointed at Jed's watch. Jed dropped the bolt. It clanged against the floor. He twisted his wrist to hide the watch's face. Not again. Captain Bogg rocked back and forth, trying to see. Answer the man, he said to Jed. Answer him what? I don't know what he said. Is that boy deaf or something? Nah, not deaf, Captain Bogg said. Just a straggler who can't seem to hear a scrap thing I tell him. He walked over and slapped Jed's shoulder with the crushing weight of his palm. It's not a bit of a worry, but I still want to know. Would that be on the wrist? Captain Bogg squeezed. Start talking. I can't understand him, Jed whispered. You keep acting like a fool, I'll toss you down to the piles. Understand that? Tell him what's on your wrist. Jed squirmed. Just something my parents gave me. Thought you said he was a straggler. I did say he was a straggler. Found him stranded. Then what's he doing with that? The tinker poked his finger at Jed's wrist 3 more times. Jed, tell the tinker what you're doing with whatever you've got there. I'm not doing anything with it. He clutched the copper band so tightly it dug into his wrist. My parents gave it to me. You said that already. Bring it over here. Let's have a look. I'd prefer not to. Captain Bogg's eyes burned. He slowly lifted one eyebrow. Bring that watch here now, please. Jed swallowed and stepped forward. The tinker grabbed his arm and yanked him closer. He held Jed's wrist an inch from his eye. What you want for this? It's not mine to offer, Captain Bogg said. I couldn't say a price. The tinker spoke slowly for the first time. Try me. Ask the boy. It's his, Captain Bogg said. How much you want for that watch? It's not for sale, Jed said. Captain Bogg shrugged. Guess it's not for sale, then. The tinker's grip tightened. But, he stammered. Listen here, boy. I'll pay you 20,000 batteries. 20,000 batteries? Captain Bogg's jaw sank. For that? He snatched Jed's wrist and reached for the clasp. Jed yanked away. I said it wasn't for sale. He covered it with his other hand. Jed? Captain Bogg patted the air with his hands, as if Jed were holding a human hostage instead of a wristwatch. I don't think you heard what he's offering. I heard. I don't care. This isn't for sale. You don't understand. Captain Bogg's breathing turned deep and labored. Our scrapped tug isn't even worth 20,000 batteries. It's not worth 10. No. That boy ain't no straggler. What do you mean he's no straggler? What kind of straggler walks around with a relic? A what? Captain Bogg's voice cracked in the air. A relic? You brought a relic onto my ship? The scars around his eyes drew together. Who are you and where did you get that? I'm not a thief, Jed yelled so loud the tinker flinched. I'm tired of being accused of stuff I didn't do. He took a breath and started over, lowering his voice. I'm only going to say this once more. My parents gave me this watch. I didn't steal it. I don't know what it does. They left it for me with a note that said to never take it off, ever. And now they're gone, lost. I don't know if they're in prison or if they're dead. You think I want to be here? I don't. His voice felt like a fire. This is a nightmare, and there's nothing I can do about it. So no, I'm not selling the only piece of scrap I have left of my parents. Something glinted in Captain Bog's eyes. Something sincere. Empathetic. I guess that's your answer, he said to the tinker. The watch is out. Just rip it off his wrist and toss him overboard, the tinker spit at Jed. Captain Bog shook his head. I'm not a thief either. That's not how I do business. I don't care about none that. Bring me that relic or the deal's off. His shiny forehead was slick with sweat and red as a cherry tomato. I don't know what to tell you. It's not mine to trade. If the boy won't sell it, there's nothing I can do. The tinker's cheeks lit up in a splotchy red to match his forehead. He stamped his foot. You don't do something about this. I won't ever trade with you, never again. And I'll tell every tinker out there to do the same. Captain Bog grabbed the man by his throat. The force ripped through the tinker as the captain slammed him against the nearest wall. The tinker's belly bobbled up and down. Do I seem like someone you can threaten? The tinker tried to speak, but only squeaks of air escaped. He shook his head. Captain Bog tossed him to the floor. I've always been fair with you, treated you right, paid more than I should on occasion. He squatted beside the tinker. You ever threaten me again, I'll burn your ship to scrap. How about you tell the other tinkers that? The tinker held his throat and stared at the floor. Okay then, sounds like things are all wrapped up here. He slapped a box of screws off a shelf, sending them sprawling across the floor. Let's go, Jed, we're done. They walked up the stairs and hopped back to the tug. The captain unlashed the ropes and shoved the schooner's railing. It floated away lazily. Jed touched his watch. Thank you. Captain Bog lifted an eyebrow. Thank you? For what? Not smacking around some kid and stealing his toy? I guess. Captain Bog released a weary breath. You realize what just happened. I know. I'm sorry I messed up the trade. I know how important it must have been. You do? The captain folded his arms. Enlighten me. Well, I guess you need supplies to fix up the ship and I don't know. I didn't think so. Remember the defluxor core Riggs was whining about? It's not something you find laying around, and it's not cheap. This was the first tinker in a month who had one at a price we could afford. So when we're plummeting in a burning fireball of death and regret, remember who put us there. I'm sorry. I wish there was something I could do. There is. You're wearing it. Oh, right. I mean, stop babbling empty apologies to make this less uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. And how comfortable will it get when the crew hears? How about when falcons and wasps are hunting the scrap tug because some petty tinker told them what we had on board? Jed looked at the deck. I don't know what to say. You say, sorry, I'm a scrawny, incompetent fool, Captain, and then shut up. I'm sorry, I'm a scrawny, incompetent fool, Captain. The captain knocked the side of Jed's head with his palm. You and I aren't done. I can't just unhear what I heard back there. I know. And if the crew finds out, well, I might be able to stop a weak, lazy tinker, but I wouldn't bet half a battery on your life against my crew. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. Good. When we get going again, we're having a little chat, and bring that fancy clunk with you. The crew was lined up on the deck awaiting direction. Kaiser clasped his hands behind his back. The storeroom's cleared out, ready for supplies. Sprocket and I will load trades to the schooner while Pavel and Riggs haul in the new cargo. Let's be quick and efficient. No mistakes this time. We don't have time to waste. Pavel stood on his toes and stared over Kaiser's shoulder. Where's the tinker going? The others turned. Stop! Kaiser shouted. What is the tinker doing? Captain Bog cleared his throat. Deal didn't go through. What do you mean it didn't go through? Kaiser asked. No trades today. The captain tossed the supply list book back to Riggs. Riggs thumbed through the pages. But what about my list? He said. What about the defluxor core? And I need a half a dozen capacitors, steel bulkhead paneling, micro generators, and copper tubing. I'm aware of that, Riggs. We're running an illegal T5 engine block. We can't just shop for those parts at a township. We won't see another tinker for a month, at least. Then keep our girl flying for another month. That's what you said last month, and the month before that, and look how good a job you're doing. Sprocket, the captain said, dismissing Riggs' frantic eyes. Get Bessie moving. Everyone else, back to whatever you should be doing. I need to speak to Jed in my quarters. We are not to be disturbed. You, Kaiser jabbed a finger at Jed. This is your fault. You slimy little scab-faced slug. I'm going to tear your scrap skin from those scrawny limbs and boil it in your own blood. Enough, Kai, Captain Boggs said, though the words sounded less than half-hearted. Jed, with me, now. At least Kaiser said blood, Jed thought, instead of red-dyed machine oil. In, Captain Bogg pointed to his quarters. Then, as he had before, Captain Bogg pointed to the sofa. Sit. Jed sat, and the captain stood, fists on his hips. I've always had bad luck with stragglers, but against my better judgment, I let you keep your watch. A junk storm hit Skova not 4 days ago, and I told the crew we'd be digging there in 3 hours. But without supplies, we won't be doing digging anywhere. I've lost a fresh dig, a month's supplies, and the confidence of my crew. I'm not a thief, so I don't regret what I did. But that said, you tell me everything right now. I told you. I know what you said, and I believe you, but I'm not being told everything. You get one last chance to come clean with everything. If you're lying or leaving out one scrap detail, I'll throw you on the Tinker schooner faster than you can fall off a ladder. I was decent to trust you, even saved you from that vulture. Now, be square with me. Jed nodded. Okay, I did come from under the fringe. That wasn't a lie. Rain from the sky, wood that grows fruit, all of that was true. The captain eyed the painting of the woman. My parents went missing, and they left me this watch and a letter that said to never take it off. You said that already. What else? I'm getting there. When I met Riggs, he knew the watch was relic junk. He said I didn't know what it was. And then he paused and looked at the floor. I can't mention Shay. He'll kill her. He'll throw her off the ship. And then what? I found out more. How? I can't tell you. You want to go back to the schooner? You know what that tinker will do? Steal my watch. And kill me? Why would he kill you when he could sell you to a scrap pit as a digger? Jed winced. I can't be responsible for hurting this person. You mean one of my crew? If I tell you, promise not to hurt them. I deal with my crew how I want. That's not your concern. So what if it's not your crew? What are you babbling about? I've had my eye on you since you stepped foot on the ship. You haven't talked to anyone else. Then it should be an easy promise. Swear that you won't hurt them or leave them stranded. No. You talk or my knuckles will get real touchy-feely with your face. I can't, Jed said. Do what you have to, but I'm not going to let someone else get hurt because of me. Captain Bogg drew back his arm. You can take it, Jed told himself. You've been through worse. A memory flashed in his mind of when he'd had to cut open his own arm to drain a bubbled infection, sterilize and bandage the wound, then swim along a saltwater channel. The sting from the salt water still haunted him. The captain's fist flexed, then relaxed, then flexed again. Fine, you have a deal. Now talk. Jed's shoulders relaxed. When we were on my grandpa's steamboat, there was a girl. She survived the wreck. The captain chuckled. You think I'd fly back there to beat up a girl? She's not exactly on the steamboat anymore. She's what? Remember? You agreed. Captain Bogg straightened and his fingers flexed again. A stowaway? She snuck on board while the crew was searching the wreckage. She's scared. I don't care. No one sneaks onto my ship. Do you want answers or not? The captain glowered. Keep talking. She recognized the watch. She knows what it does, but she wouldn't tell me. She said it could... Jed knew the next words would sound ridiculous. Could what? Could make someone king of the junkyard, more powerful than the king of the dread. Jed waited for a scoff or a laugh, but the captain just looked at the watch as if his eyes were scalpels dissecting a specimen. Like a gilded relic or something? She didn't think so, but she said Riggs could read it. Riggs? Why Riggs? Something about his glasses. I'm not sure. She's sort of odd. Captain Bog walked out of his cabin. Sprocket! Aye, Captain? Send Riggs to my quarters now. Aye, Captain. Feet pattered down the bridge staircase and then down to the lower decks. A minute later, 2 sets of footsteps returned. Get in here, the captain called. Riggs entered and stood at attention. Yes, Captain? Sit down. I want you to look at something. Jed scooted to one side of the couch. Captain Bog opened a porthole window and light pooled in. Jed held out his hand. A grin stretched along Riggs' face. Well now. Well, well, well. The captain loomed over them. What is it? It's a... And don't say relic, the captain interrupted. We already know that. Yes. Well, is it a gilded relic? Riggs nearly snorted. Not even close. Then what? The captain said. Apparently you're the one who's supposed to know. Me? Why me? The captain released an irritated sigh. You don't know scrap about it, do you? He glared at Jed. You told me. She didn't say that he'd know what it was, Jed interrupted, only that he could read it. What? Who are you talking about? Riggs said. The captain pointed at the watch. Read it, Riggs. What does it say? Riggs studied the face. The clock numbers are obvious, but look here and here. Jed and Captain Bog nearly collided to hunch over the device. Riggs touched the red symbols. What are they? Captain Bog asked. Riggs tilted his head one way, then the other. He pulled off his glasses, then found a red-lensed pair. Township symbols. They're old, but definitely townships. Look, the silver hands point to this township in this sector. He touched the symbols, then switched to a new pair of glasses. The black hands indicate the time. Captain Bog shook his head. But they're not moving. No, Riggs took off his glasses. They're not. She said the hands would move when they're ready, Jed added. At his words, Captain Bog perked up. It shows a time and place, yes? Riggs nodded. Enchantment glittered in the captain's eyes. It's a treasure map. The three stared in silence at the watch, and then the hands began to spin. Look at that picture of Riggs checking out that watch with all his different glasses. And I'm sure you can hear my dog pounding at the door to be letting in. So my friends, the hands are moving. I don't know what that means. Captain Bog now knows there's a stowaway on board the ship. She knows what this does. Riggs knows how to read it, but he doesn't know what it is. They figured out maybe it's a treasure map. I can't wait. All right, so I will be coming back off and on, adding a couple more chapters every day or two until we finish this story and call it our book of the summer. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear more. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.